It's March. Can you believe it? It feels like it was the 1st of January a few days ago. Anyway, we hope that you've been staying ahead of your personal development and tucking into the recommendations we've been sharing every Tuesday. As always, don't forget to share with us any publications you would like us to highlight as part of our top 5 of the week. Now, let's explore what we have for you this week. It's Women's Month, so we are throwing back to UNDP's Regional Human Development Report published in 2016 on advancing gender equality and women's empowerment in Africa. The report asserts that gender inequality is costing sub-Saharan Africa an average of $95 billion a year, jeopardizing the continent's efforts for inclusive human development and economic growth. African women's health is also severely affected by harmful practices such as underage marriage and sexual and physical violence, and high maternal mortality, the most at-risk women being those of childbearing age. The report proposes 4 strategic pathways to greater gender equality and women's empowerment, which are: number 1, adopting legal reforms; 2, building national capacity to accelerate women's involvement in decision-making; 3, adopting multi-sectoral approaches in promoting gender equality and women's empowerment; and finally, accelerating women's ownership of assets and management of resources. The 5th edition of the United Nations Environment Programme's Adaptation Gap Report, published earlier this year, looks at progress in planning for, financing, and implementing adaptation with a focus on nature-based solutions. It outlines the current state of play in adaptation planning, finance, and implementation, and finds that while globally we may be gathering pace, we are still losing this vital race. The report also looks at nature-based solutions, which are increasingly recognized as a way to soften the blow of climate change and bring additional benefits for nature and economies. The report analyzes 4 major climate and development funds and calls for a green recovery post-pandemic and an updated nationally determined contributions that include new net zero commitments. Our next recommendation is an AFCFTA related publication, and this week we bring you a short and sweet white paper from the World Economic Forum in collaboration with Deloitte that provides policy advice and impetus towards accelerating the expansion of regional value chains in Africa's nascent manufacturing economies. Titled Connecting Countries and Cities for Regional Value Chain Integration, Operationalizing the AFCFTA, the paper focuses on the automotive sector and presents an excellent case study of how constructive collaboration between global multinationals and African governments is beginning to show tangible results in spurring new manufacturing nodes around which component value chains can be created. The document notes that as Africa builds its automotive industry, it should focus on development that promotes innovation and drives adoptions that will be sustainable for the growth and development of the sector. Up next is a collaboration between the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, UNECA, Frederick Ebert Stiftung, and the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights on digital trade in Africa. The publication contains a critical assessment of the human rights dimensions of what is to be the biggest trade agreement in terms of the number of participating countries since the establishment of the World Trade Organization. This is, of course, the African Continental Free Trade Area. The publication makes a case for the opportunities presented by the digital economy, but also presents challenges that would need to be addressed in a way that is inclusive, transparent, and consistent with people centered governance and the attainment of human rights. Finally, on our list for you this week is the World Bank's Women, Business and the Law study that measures the laws and regulations that affect women's economic opportunity in 190 economies. The project presents 8 indicators structured around women's interaction with the law as they move through their careers. And these include mobility, workplace, pay, marriage, parenthood, entrepreneurship, assets, and pensions. This current publication presents studies in 2 new areas: childcare and access to justice. On childcare, it recognizes that unpaid care work is one of the main barriers to women's employment and job retention, and it examines the need to reduce this barrier through the provision of childcare. It also puts forward a number of ways of measuring women's access to justice. That's it. That's all we have for you for this week. I hope that you find something of interest on this list and that you continue to send us your recommendations so we can share them. Stay safe and have a wonderful, wonderful week.